Hey there, welcome to episode 107 of the FFS Talk audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 5:47 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in Greater Vegas on Thursday, December 11, 2025. We publish FFS Talk on Thursdays, so we might just make it. Today's title and topic, We versus They. If you're not familiar with the FFS Talk audio program, this is intended to be an audio program with a guest or two to discuss, to debate, to argue over a particular topic, question, issue, idea, to exchange notions on what works, what does not, and what we might do about it. Sort of a constructive engagement. To date, there have been no guests, mostly because I really haven't tried very hard to reach out to people. There are a few things I'd like to accomplish first about outreach and engagement and information sharing at city scale, but we basically want to aim at city scale topics, although they could be applicable elsewhere. So eventually we'll have some guests. So I prefer to think of these 107 episodes as seeds of future discussion. If anyone is curious what my thinking is on various topics, they might find something that they find interesting or appealing, or maybe they completely disagree with me and would like to argue, debate, or simply discuss. Who knows? So that's where this is going. Today, we versus they, sort of a similar idea, I suppose. If you're not familiar with what FFS means, it is an abbreviation for an expression commonly heard in Dublin or Ireland at large. I spent a lot of time in Dublin for a time when I was working with Intel, the chip company. So I got to know many Irish people, and it's an expression they use frequently. If you don't know what FFS means, you should do the same. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which is 2 sentences, and I will read them both to you. They're pretty short, I promise. The 2 links for today's episode, keeping it simple as the holidays approach, just the usual self-promotion. So let's get it started so we can get finished on this early Thursday morning. The summary, certainly the expression us versus them is familiar. It is usually indicative of an adversarial relationship, if relationship is the right word. Here, let us consider a more neutral environment wherein one side or another must do something, capital D, capital S. The links, as usual, ffstalk.com. It's spelled exactly as it sounds, FFSTALK, no space. ffstalk.com is the primary point of publication, coming soon, for this audio program. Right now, it's extremely Spartan. I've been saying this for weeks. I have some design ideas in mind, but basically I'm not a web designer. I'm a developer. I'm a coder. So I'll turn that into some nicer stuff, but I don't really have a ton of web visitors. And that goes back to that information sharing and kind of getting the word out part of the plan. So either way, you can find the current episode there and then links to the Spotify for Creators portal and our YouTube channel. I will do more linking as the design idea comes together. In the meantime, so keep that website handy. That will be our primary point of publication, so that there's always a place to go to find the correct recent catalog and individual episodes, the most current episode, and so on. You never know if Spotify is going to go down. It does sometimes, which can be annoying. And YouTube, don't even get me started. The profile page linking everything, as usual, buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo, no space, DANHUGO. By the way, you can see these links and click on them if you visit the episode description wherever you found this audio program. The buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page contains links to everything, all the audio episodes in various places to find them, including the home pages, the Spotify for Creators home pages. Publishing through Spotify for Creators is interesting, but it will move into the second slot, so it'll be kind of the backup. So we'll distribute through them, might host the audio there for distribution, but the original, like Again, primary point of publication will always be something that you can find through ffstalk.com. So if you are interested in these episodes, keep that in mind. The buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page also includes some links to various projects, a little bit of biographical information at the top, and some affiliate links to if you're interested in supporting these various efforts without actually spending money. You don't have to spend any money on this website. You need not buy me a coffee. But I do have links, affiliate links to my favorite coffee beans and some other things that I actually use. So, hey, do what you like. Do note that the Buy Me an Update audio program, which is published on Mondays, a 5-minute or less update. I cover the previous week's audio program topics and then any news and announcements. And Coffee Solo can also be found there. The link to it, which is actually hosted on ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Dan Hugo. Each of those shows was named for the respective platform. The idea was to use those platforms to distribute some audio programming. But you know what? Podcasts really benefit from being available on these various platforms. Wherever you find your podcast is a thing. So just having the audio available in one place is not ideal. So they're available in one place initially, and then some short amount of time later, they get distributed to the usual places. So there you go. Now on with the show. So it's the end of the year, 2025. As this calendar year winds down, there is and will be much talk about 2026 and maybe even 27, 28, the state of life and the economy and the world and whatnot. It's all in the news. The conversations around these topics, often online, will tend to revolve around what some level of government, federal down to local, or some non-government agency or agencies will follow through on regarding studies and promises and maybe even public sentiment or perhaps outcry, or perhaps where the follow-through came up short. This is probably an indicator of power imbalance, which can leave the we in this inequality on the less than side. It may be, and often is, the lack of resources or authority left to the people to tackle known issues of great impact, ceding that to our elected officials and the bureaucracy at one or more levels, and then the masses fret about this or that, important to them but lost in the noise, with more and more noise on a daily basis in these modern times. Raise your hand if you have any idea what's going on any given day, given a number of random posts and tweets and wherever your sources are. It's almost better to just watch reaction videos or something else. This is often not an issue of political party and power so much as the flow of capital for a variety of reasons, whether re-election campaign, war chest, replenishment, or greed, or ego, or whatever else. So that we, those of us probably listening to this audio program, are left disappointed while they, those in power, whether financially or politically or otherwise, make their own progress toward their own goals until the campaigning begins anew. Then the promises return. So what works if they do it as opposed to we? Pick a level of government. This is where money, budgets, and oversight are to be found. If there is a legitimate democratic process in place, usually there is, suitable negotiation and compromise, the outcome of a decision-making process will provide some reasonable good, some good that is reasonably good, to some fraction of a constituency, the needs of the many and all that. A government has the legal authority and resources to enforce resource allocation decisions so that fund disbursement, allocation, and results are as advertised, or lest there be hearings and so on, with defined tools and methods to redress grievances, to coin a phrase. Usually we have to redress the grievances, but there's a way to do it. Government entities operate with a certain level of transparency, usually. Some claim to be the most transparent, but are not necessarily. So that there is not only a path to the redress of those grievances, but there is visibility, into the process, the participants, or maybe vendors or suppliers, requirements and deliverables. All these are to be made available for inspection, maybe with some shenanigans and delays, but ultimately the use of public funds is to be visible to the public. Sometimes. Let me correct a little typo there. So now what works if we do it? You can argue with any of these, by the way, to remind you. If and when your government, at whatever level, my government's for City of Las Vegas, County of Clark for some things, and for the state of Nevada, along with the agencies and other NGOs mixed in there, here, is not delivering, those who are motivated to enact some change can sometimes do just that on their own. Not so often individually, but they get together, form a group, the we. There are many caveats, of course, many, and that time commitment may be prohibitive to work the process, but a motivated group can sometimes press on and make what they need happen. And it may be for themselves, their neighbors, their community, or maybe for just a special interest group that they may be supporting. Many possibilities. There are substantial limits. For example, your neighbors cannot build a new road, but fixing potholes could happen with some hands-on effort. This has happened here in the Vegas area with Public Works not cutting it. So the neighbors in a community, and I think it was on the east side of the greater Vegas area, decided to fix the potholes. They made the news. If a large enough group of people can recognize the need, whatever it is, and the lack of response at a government level, action can be taken such that there will eventually be actual attention given to the matter at a government level, wherever is appropriate, perhaps. This may come from an initiative for a new item, a referendum to uphold or repeal some existing item. These are sometimes laws, but whatever the case, your mileage may vary. A recall to change leadership, pursue a plebiscite early on to initiate some action towards some item, or maybe file a lawsuit. That's fairly American, especially if there are agencies involved over elected bodies and laws. You can always sue everybody, though. Why not? A variety of ways for public action through amplified voices of the many when government is off the path. In any case, when the drive to take action comes from the people, we the people, see what I did there? From closer to the issue, whatever it might be, or issues, closer to the ground, maybe, so to speak, instead of on high in the castle, right? So those of us down here, it is possible that more people will pay attention or will linger over the process with a personal interest. If a campaign promise suffices and then a particular issue is out of mind or falls back behind a collection of distractions, it may well be that something actually important will give way to shiny issues that are important on the other side of the political fence, not the political aisle, but the fence between they and we. Usually there's a dollar figure in there somewhere. So if we do it or we are more involved, then we will tend to pay attention more. So if we're a little bit more hands-on, that can work better. Even if it does, become a political process, the more involvement we have, the less they can get away with. Now, this may or may not be true at every turn. If you presented an argument, I'd probably have to agree with you. Could be better. But what does not work? I think this is something we have all witnessed at some point, that money, power, connection, money, power, can derail anything that the many want or need, with benefit flowing to the few, the people once referred to as the wealthy landed aristocracy, if you remember your high school history classes. Back when the federal government of the United States was forming, there was a consideration, especially if you were a big fan of John Adams, that those with wealth and land should be in the upper house, the parliamentary notion or inspiration, so that the Senate, for example, would have been those with money and power, money and land, I should say, thus power. So the wealthy landed aristocracy should be given more because they have more, maybe something like that. People with more deserve more. That's the take home. That's of some. This can lead to even the best efforts of a large crowd becoming derailed, drowned out by more money, maybe spent to campaign against, via mass outreach. There could just be kind of an ongoing effort to derail these efforts, maybe by a media company and craft messages and news coverage and so on accordingly. Basically a coordinated propaganda effort of various kinds, even a competing proposal or measure to knock the initial effort off the board. So if somebody comes up with a better bill, a better proposal, but nobody reads it, for example. A classic issue of Did You Read the Bill? Or whatever that might be, where a government process results in something apparently good in line with what the group wants or needs, but which is ultimately derailed by the fine print. How did that fine print get in there? Well, we know. And we know it so well that we barely even keep track anymore, which just makes more fine print easier to pass, made even easier when the effects are time delayed, disconnecting a questionable bill from its fallout. We'll probably see this with the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, or whatever the actual name was when they passed it through the Senate to get signed. So some of the implications of that one don't go into effect until after the midterm elections. So January 1st, probably, or 2nd or something, in 2027. And by then, no one will connect this to that. The we are not always unified. That's a big problem with so many distractions. You can start with life in general, the daily grind headlines, and then throw in some doom scrolling and random this or that, infighting. It gets ridiculous, actually. Conspiracy theories, who knows? It may be difficult, maybe even impossible, to enlist a large enough we to counter they around any particular issue. Now, we can look at some news over the last several months. We are recording this, again, December 11th, 2025. And we can see that substantial crowds can turn out. There can be huge, massive, largest crowds in history for protesting and so on. But protests may or may not result in action. Showing up once is fine, but you kind of have to stick with it. Still, attention and awareness are good starting points for what is usually an uphill climb. So the process is easy to talk about, but action is where it's at, and that's sometimes where people don't show up despite their best intentions. So what can we do? The advent of AI is going to be a problem in general in the world. It seems like every day you read how some new model or system or a new startup is driving some efforts to literally replace more and more people, especially people with my kind of job, which is disheartening. Software engineering and so on. But in this case, we might at least get beyond the have you read this bill? Have you read the bill? Or similar, with summaries or queryable information, which is interesting when you think about it. If a bill of hundreds or thousands of pages can be summarized and queried, there is a chance that the fine print may give away some of the game. Like, when do these things go into effect? And whichever client you are using that has analyzed the text of this ridiculously huge document could probably come back and tell you. Magic. Ideally, anyone would pursue the use of such tools, but we are not quite there yet. So more probably in the near term, over the next 2 to 5 years, we leave that to the press or political wonks, if at all. So people that are deeply interested and motivated can use these tools to derive some concerns. They can provide maybe a queryable application of sorts around a particular bill. So, hey, if you have questions or concerns about this 1,000-page bill, go here, type in what your concern is, and you'll get a response based on the text of the bill. So enabling that without the telephone game of sorts, without too much personal opinion or bias injected in. Now, models will have bias already. So it's going to be an interesting time over the next few years. But ultimately, we do have tools available for the general population to make use of, if they would, to at least take a stab at better understanding of what our processes are doing. Can we benefit, or is it all about they getting what they want? I know the correct thing would be them, but I'm trying to be consistent. So possibly first mentioned around 1932 or so, they say politics is local. All politics is local. I would argue that this is often true, but starting with local change is often slightly easier. So true enough, perhaps. With more people close to the issue at hand and fewer people to address, the people around you, the people in your city, or maybe neighborhoods or city, or maybe more, but maybe that's a manageable population. So that's fewer people to address at large, and that's fewer government people to lobby. Your government may be down the street from where you live, not across the country from where we are in Nevada, for example. So the ability to participate may be greater, and maybe it's easier to enlist for action or whatever kind more people. More. Volume does count in these cases. If we can affect change at local levels, there may be a possibility that confidence in larger undertakings may result. If we can make small changes happen, maybe we can make bigger change happen, and so on. And, well, so the final point, cohesive messaging using better tools than X and Blue Sky and that ilk. Single monolithic silos, usually leaning one way or the other, and a coherent plan that we can get behind, and then tight coupling of the messaging and the plan can go a long way to instill confidence and maybe even encourage participation, which can empower more people to participate so that we can make things better, so to speak, where they are possibly letting us down, letting we down. I think about this sometimes, especially here in Vegas, when we look at the Formula One race, for example, 3 years in, the powers that be who have oversight over this are tending to lean towards profitability of almost literally the wealthy landed aristocracy. So if you're a casino company, the Fontainebleau is often is becoming more and more the sort of center of attention. But if you're MGM or Caesars, if you can make money on this, then they may or may not be overly concerned if a small family business can't open during that time because of changes to foot traffic or traffic flow or during construction and so on. And the Formula One is kind of an easy example because it's so blatant. But in general, if you have a local economy that is driven by tourism, for example, then if tourism dips as it has for 2025, then the immediate reflexive response is for they to look at ways to increase tourism, whereas we here on the ground may be having to close small businesses, which is happening. We may find higher unemployment, and Nevada, by the way, is number 2 in the country for an unemployment rate. And this is statewide, but Vegas certainly has about 2/3 of the population, so you can do that math. And in general, there is often a disconnect between what is happening and what they are doing. There's some local news coverage. There are some independent media outlets, Nevada Independent, Nevada Current. There's individual people that take an interest and do some reporting. There are those that are focused more on sports, some more on gaming, some more on tourism. So they choose a particular facet of our local economy. Usually the economy is driving access to resources, which can lead to change. There are government interests. There are political aspirations at play. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And if your local media, as is the case here in Vegas, only or preferably talks about, the bright, shiny things, tourism and crime and so-and-so won a jackpot and here's the local residents and so on. So a lot of news coverage is focused on a small number of things, whereas the closer to the ground, if you like, these sorts of issues and topics and pursuits, progress or lack thereof, don't always get the attention unless people are looking for information. It doesn't often find them. So that's where a more engaged local population, your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, those proximal or distal, but impacted, feeling the same pains, more communication, better information sharing, greater awareness, that cohesive message. Cohesion means that things are making sense. They're logically constructed and presented in a convincing manner that is memorable, doesn't scare people away, will draw in interested people and their interest. And then a coherent plan. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Now that we know that there's a problem, what do we do? And then take it from there. So often, I see this a lot around me. There is stop me if you've heard this one. Somebody should do something about this. So they should fix it. And often they do not have your interests. So it's up to us as we can do more if we put our minds to it, and if we collaborate, if we cooperate, and if we pursue those cohesive and coherent possibilities. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Today's a brief episode. You can hear my voice is already arguing with me at this early hour. I think it's the weather. The weather has been a little bit all over the place here in Vegas. Totally screws up every aspect of me speaking. But hopefully this was interesting to you, and if it's something that you are interested in speaking more about, well, I'm here for you. Don't forget that. I will look for guests more proactively into 2026 and beyond. If you've made it this far, maybe you are one potential. We can have conversations about this or any number of many topics. This is episode 107 after all. So that's that. I will leave it there. Thank you again for listening. And I'm going to say we're at 27 minutes. I'm going to say with some silence removal, silence truncation, we're going to be closer to like 24, 25, somewhere in there. But yeah, we'll see. Keeping it short. Holidays are approaching. And maybe they're already here. Who knows? But thanks for listening as always. Don't forget to follow along with my various audio programs if you are interested. Don't forget that buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page has links to everything, including the primary points of publication, the individual websites that I have more control over than Spotify or Apple or Amazon or a variety of others. That's where we're going to end it for today. Thank you again. Happy holidays.